So I am very, very passionate about encouraging agents, like you said, raise your price point, give yourself a raise, because you can literally raise your average price point, do the same number of transactions and give yourself a raise easily 25, 50% with the same number of transactions. And that doesn't mean all the properties you're selling have to be luxury. You can have a certain segment of your entire inventory or the people you work with as luxury. Maybe 25% is allocated to luxury. The easiest way to do that is to develop some kind of a niche. I think I consider myself like the niche queen.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that's the only thing you sell, but everybody should have some kind of a niche. And in that niche, there's normally a variety of price points. It's
Right.
just fun. Like me, I love historic homes. I love equestrian properties. I love farms. So it's like vacation to deal with that. Do I love cookie cutter townhouses? Absolutely not. Do I love, thrown up together subdivisions? No way. So if you develop a niche around something you're really interested, something you're really passionate about, you are that much further away from, even having burnout, because it's fun. The people you're going to work with are more likely to be potential friends because they have the same passions. That might be skiing, that might be golf, that might be boating and fishing, or,
Right.
recreation, whatever it is.
We know all real estate agents want to acquire clients consistently so that they can grow their business and income for that great lifestyle. This broadcast brings you the best and top people in the industry to support that quest. This is Dave Fanale, and I'm here to bring you the Real Estate Skill Builder broadcast, Real Estate Talk TGIF, brought to you by Real Estate Skill Builder and Align, your premier real estate solution. Hello, everybody. We're back. This is Real Estate Talk TGIF, and we have Janie Coffey with us. A little bit about Janie. With Janie, luxury really isn't just about big price tags. It's about legacy. It's about passion. It's about leadership. Janie is the driving force behind eXp Luxury, a powerhouse agent who's turned her love of architecture, preservation, and mentoring into just the one of the greatest people in this business you'll ever meet. She's not just selling homes; she's shaping the future of how we do luxury real estate, what luxury real estate is all about. Janie, thank you so much for coming on today.
Dave, I'm super excited and I can't wait to spend some time with you guys.
But this is a fantastic thing because I live in an area where, it's one of the most expensive places in the country, not as much as that there are in California, but we're getting there. Northern New Jersey, northern Bergen County, Franklin Lakes. I grew up in Franklin Lakes, Alpine, New Jersey, but it's a lot different where you are in Florida. Well, at least a little bit different. But first, before we get into your story and everything, I have a question for you. And that question is, what does TGIF stand for?
Besides, thank God
Yes,
it's Friday.
that's a really good answer. That's what everybody says, but sorry, it's not right. It's thank God it's finale. That's why we're here.
I
We're here
got it.
because this is my broadcast. I knew it was a curveball I sent you for the first question, but anyway, here we are. So Janie, we got that out of the way. Talk to me about your past. Talk to me about your future. Talk to me about how you got to where you are today in everything we're going to talk about with luxury, with real estate, everything. Talk to me about your story.
Sure. So been in real estate or real estate aligned industries since college. So since the late 80s. Started with a Class A interior commercial developer who redeveloped really, really beautiful buildings in downtown DC, and really got the bug for that.
Right.
Worked my way up, became a general contractor, moved to Florida from the Northern Virginia DC area. And I've been here now 25 years, 26 years. But my family's from here, so I moved back closer to family and was in commercial interior general contracting for the first 15 years. And then the last 20 years, I transitioned over to real estate. I still hold my general contractor license, so I use that when necessary. Developed a niche in both historic and luxury properties, as well as equestrian properties. Was very ambitious, got my broker license at 1 year and 1 day, because you could do that in Florida at the time. Opened a brokerage with the really great timing of opening it right before the Great Recession. But I don't regret it, because those 5 years we managed to keep a bricks and mortar office together through the whole recession as basically brand new licensees
Yeah.
in Miami, which was the hot point, I think, of a lot of price crashes during the recession. And as we came out of the recession, Sotheby's brand decided to open in Florida or reopen in Florida. And I just fell in love with that brand. I thought it was so beautiful. Joined them, worked my way up to become the executive vice president of a very, very, very large franchise for the Sotheby's brand. And I ran with that brand for about 8 years. Transitioned over to Compass, was with Compass as a founding agent for 3 years, and then transitioned to EXP 4 years ago, where I am now, like you said, the co-chair of the luxury division, and me, as well as 4 other agents, along with corporate, have developed the luxury division here at EXP. So a little bit under all of that. I do have a team. I sell myself relatively little at this point, but I have a very good and successful team here in Florida. And I do a lot of coaching and training outside that is broker agnostic.
Wow, that's something. But the other thing is that you, just one of the little thing we'll hit real quickly here is that you are a, correct me if I'm wrong, 15th generation in your area in Florida. That's something you don't hear a lot of. I mean, I think I'm second generation in my in my area. Talk to me about that a little bit, because that's an interesting point.
Yeah, no, I'm 15th generation right here in St. Augustine, and St. Augustine is the oldest continuously occupied city in the United States. So I am from there's only 2 families that lived in St. Augustine continuously, because there was a Spain owned St. Augustine all the way until 1821. So we've only been U.S. owned for a little over 200 years, which is wild in and of itself. But there was a 20 or 30-year period in there where the British took over all of St. Augustine, and only 2 families stayed because they helped the British kind of navigate the city and the buildings and everything. And I'm from one of those 2 families. So there's only people from those 2 families who can say that they have been continuously in St. Augustine, the oldest city in the US, since the beginning, and we're one of them. So it's pretty cool. Like I can understand it conceptually, but even having grown up in that environment and even living right here in it, I still don't, my brain can't wrap my head around it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it must be really strange. I mean, I that's okay, that's 2 people now I have a connection with. I have a connection with a friend whose family came over on the Mayflower, believe it or not. That's
Yeah.
a couple of years ago too. So let's talk about what you're doing. I mean, luxury is the thing with you, but you didn't get it. Did you get into luxury immediately? How did you start in the real estate business to actually be where you are today?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I started in Coral Gables, which is a higher end community in Miami. So by nature, I kind of started in a higher end
Okay.
location, but I wasn't selling like the luxury properties right out of the gate. I started in historic properties. So
Oh,
I
wow.
definitely had that niche from the beginning. Um, but just the way it often happens, made a sale, made connections, things like that. And so my
Right.
price point kept going up. So by the time Sotheby's opened in Florida, again, which was the second rendition of Sotheby's in Miami, I was already kind of in that luxury space. And then that springboarded me as well, because no longer having to be the owner broker, I didn't have to create everything from scratch. I could really lean into
Right.
their brand and what they had to offer.
Right. Right. So you're able to build up and do that. And a lot of people, we hear that, how do agents make more money? Well, one of the things is raise your price point, right?
Yep.
So is that something that's you need to target, you need to strategize, have tactics and behind it when you want to raise a price point, when you want to get into luxury?
So I am very, very passionate about encouraging agents, like you said, raise your price point, give yourself a raise, because you can literally raise your average price point, do the same number of transactions, and give yourself a raise easily 25, 50% with the same number of transactions. And that doesn't mean all the properties you're selling have to be luxury. You can have a certain segment of your entire inventory or the people you work with as luxury. Maybe 25% is allocated to luxury. The easiest way to do that is to develop some kind of a niche. I think I consider myself like the niche queen.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that's the only thing you sell, but everybody should have some kind of a niche. And in that niche, there's normally a variety of price points. So for me, like I said, my two main niches are historic and equestrian. So there's lower
Right.
and mid-price historic and equestrian, and then there's really, and it's much easier to position yourself in a niche and then go up in price point than to just try to go from, let's call it bread and butter pricing, to all luxury, not related at all to the bread and butter you were doing or still want to continue to do.
Right. So I have a friend up here in New Jersey that got into luxury, and the way he did it was that he made the appearance that he was luxury.
Mhm.
He joined country clubs he couldn't afford. He went out to dinner and places to be seen where he couldn't afford. And as time went on, this all worked for him. Right. Really nice guy. His name's he's with Real and does a really great job of this. And that's how he got in. And he wouldn't go to the supermarket without wearing a suit. Right. So that's how he is, and that's how he was, and was able to build up the look of being in that to get going. Is that important? Is being involved in those things important for you as you raise your price point and get into super luxury or luxury itself?
That's a great question, and one I don't think people ask me enough. That is one path to luxury, to selling luxury. It's not
Right.
the only path.
Right.
I am very successful, have been very successful in luxury sales. I've been training on this nationally and now internationally for 15 years. If you met me in my regular life, I live on a farm. I'm very low key. I'm very chill. I'm not a country club glowing person. I'm not even the most like I'm fairly introverted. So that path wouldn't work for me. That path
Right.
works great for social people, people who love to socialize, who love to do all that, go to events and network and work their way up. My
Right.
path, more like I said, being very targeted and direct with both my niche and my marketing, so that I started from the real estate sales themselves and worked my
Right.
way up rather than from the people. They both are important. It's just which are you going to go after first? And it depends a lot on your personality and your skill set.
It all has to do with, again, like with anything, with any kind of lead generation, with any kind of things you want to do. It's all about what you're doing and how you do it consistently, and build momentum with your consistency. I like one of my favorite lines from a buddy of mine I learned from Grant Wise was consistency is undefeated. Right.
Yeah.
So it goes with anything and everything. Right. So getting into luxury is one thing, but here's the other things: is you're a contractor, you're a general contractor, you have a general contractor's license, and that allows you to do other things to be more attractive, let's say, as a real estate agent to your clients and customers. Tell me about that and how that you work that into your business.
Well, it's funny. I normally never tell people that. At least I normally never tell clients that. And
Right.
the reason is I got my butt bitten a few times where people had an expectation that was not realistic of stuff I should see or notice. And especially being somebody who specializes in historic homes, which, often have a much larger or more um, broad set of maintenance things and all that
Right.
I no longer tell people that they find it out sometimes, but I don't tell them. But once we're in business and we're working on something, or maybe we're negotiating repairs or something, more often I bring that to bear when I'm negotiating with the other side,
Right.
right?
Right.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I mean, the experience of that is really important. And it's not, look, it's not necessary for all real estate agents or even luxury to be a general contractor or to be a builder, but I think it's really important. And let's talk about this a little bit, for agents to actually build an expertise by observation. And what I mean by that is that to give you a little example, I had a session with an agent this week talking about, offer that person wanted to put in with a short sale, believe it or not, but there's issues with the house, and more worried about one thing, but wasn't worried about where the problem was coming from, a water problem. And I said, first of all, don't worry about it, just put the offer in. But with the expertise that you get as time goes on, you can actually, just by a picture, see that it's not a water from underneath, it's a water from above. I
right.
just use that as a quick example where everything everybody does in this business, they should be watching and learning about what a house looks like, what a house not looks like, but how it's built and where the problems come. Can you expand a little bit on that and how you were able to grow that as time went on?
I think that's really great. The way you can get that if you don't have, say, a background like I have, which is not all that common, would be to attend to the inspections for your properties all the way through and, really soak in everything the inspector has to say, maybe even watch YouTube videos about property types where you work, because properties in New Jersey versus properties in Florida versus properties in Arizona, they all have their own kind of unique
Absolutely.
things that you need to know about. And what's really important also is that you can find inspectors who are knowledgeable, but also not alarmists. Because what happens, I found, is buyers can often be very scared and nervous about anything. And if you yourself understand certain things and say, hey, you know what, you're right, there's this thing going on, but that's not a huge deal. Let's see how we can take it care, get it taken care of. I remember I bought a historic house that had a teeny weeny little crack in
Yeah.
close to the ground, and the transaction before me had actually fallen out because of this teeny crack. I'm in Florida. All homes, 90% of homes, are built on the slab. So it's not like you have a big foundation like a basement. So the fact that there was a little teeny crack near the ground, 1 inch off the ground, meant nothing. But the people before me got out of contract because they or their agent didn't understand enough about that, and it freaked them out. They were probably coming from the north, or they were thinking a foundation crack that goes down to the basement is a huge deal. So just understanding that for the types of homes that you sell and help people buy is extremely important.
Yeah, that is so true. And I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of that, but I just want to explain just a little bit more of what you said. I mean, in Florida, we're not digging a foundation down
Right.
below the frost line as we are here in northern New Jersey. You know,
Right.
it's 3 feet or more, depending on what the soils are. And basically the soils down by you are really sand. And I've seen foundations dug by hand in your areas. So I mean, it's different, and knowing where you're at, knowing what's in the area is really, really important. Um, when we look at what you're doing with luxury and how you're teaching it, do you talk about the difference in buyers and sellers as opposed to buyers and sellers of, let's just say, average range homes in an average community? I mean, you're working on a price range from 700 to on up, probably, right?
Yeah.
And luxury does not necessarily mean multi-millions. It means these.
Right.
Give me the definition of luxury first, and then we can get into that.
So the Institute of Luxury Home Marketing, who I think most of us in luxury at all kind of consider them as the backbone of training for luxury, they define luxury as the top 10% of any given market.
Right.
I find that a little low to be an overall luxury definition. So I consider the top 10% starter luxury. That could be like the golf course communities, the move up communities. And like you said, in my area, it's 700. In some areas, it might be a million, million two. In some areas, it might be 400,000. I
Right.
start to see across the board when you get into, say, the top 5%, that's when you start to really be more into luxury. And then the top 1%, which is, say, uber luxury, that's where most people kind of psych themselves out because they only look at the uber luxury properties, the 10 million, the 5 million, the 50 million, and think, oh, that's not for me. But that's only the top 1% of the market, whereas we have like the whole, 10% and up. Of course, price is only one component. Sometimes you've got very pricey properties that are not luxury. Maybe it's the land or the location. You might have smaller properties that might be a condo hotel that might be not in that price, but might truly be luxury. But it's a big part of the designation.
Right. Right. So when we talk about so that's really important for people to understand what
It's
luxury
huge.
is and where it is. It's a great way to look at it, and that's the only way to look at it because that's the definition. When we talk about buyers and sellers, is there a difference in attitude? I mean, is there a difference in personality when we start
Mhm.
getting to that range? And this is just like what the previous question, the previous discussion about what is luxury. What can we expect, or what will we see with the difference in buyers and sellers? Because nobody really talks about that.
That's huge, and it's probably the second thing that psychs a lot of people out of entering
Right.
the luxury side of things, because they have a misconception. There's two main differences. On the bread and butter, especially at the entry level, this might be their first ever purchase or their first ever sale. They probably have a lot of family members or neighbors or other giving them advice and suggestions and stuff, and they take a lot of hand holding. There's a, it might be their biggest asset. It normally is their biggest asset. And so there's a lot more hand holding going on with that entry level or even bread and butter. They haven't probably sold a ton of properties, but they do look up to us they really look up to us as far as our advice and everything like that, right? So that's that one dynamic. Conversely, on the higher prices, this is not only not their first rodeo, they probably bought and sold multiple properties in multiple locations. They probably own multiple properties. So they don't need any explanation of the process unless it's very different from the state they're coming from or where they last sold. But they also are looking to their agent to be a true skilled professional, just like they want their attorney, their financial advisor, their insurance broker to be real skilled advisors. And they're kind of, for the most part, handing it off to you and trusting in you. So I find dealing with the higher price buyers and sellers is, generally speaking, far easier, but their expectations of your skill set and your knowledge and your negotiation skills is higher. That's the only difference. But the people themselves are generally the same. They're just like me and you. They deal with their pets, their kids, all the things. Unless you're dealing with sports and entertainers, they often have a manager or a middle person or somebody that you're dealing with. That's the only kind of niche that you might often be dealing with somebody else other than the principal buyer or seller.
So is when we talk about skills, all right, we talk about taking over. We're actually taking over they're actually, what I'm getting is that we're actually taking over the process for them and just keeping them attuned to what we're doing and where everything's at. So where our skills have to be high end as the property that we're working with. Is there anything that is intricate to that luxury buyer or that luxury seller aside from making sure you know your stuff?
Yeah. So on the sales side, because I'm predominantly listing agent, or even my training is predominantly listing based, because I've follow the list to last methodology.
Right.
Luxury properties normally do take longer on the market to sell. They normally do need more marketing to sell. So if you're only used to selling, let's call it bread and butter, average price properties, you do need to develop really good seller communication and updating SOPs, standard operating procedures, and frameworks. You do need to understand and develop the mentality that you need to invest more in this property as far as the assets like the photos, video, brochures, things like that, as well as the marketing and the ongoing marketing than you would normally need to in bread and butter. So those are two things. And then often understanding pricing and being able to have price conversations and even reduction conversations when necessary is often a skill that you need to really hone, because there's a good chance that this is like a one-off property. Either they built it or they highly renovated it. There isn't any necessarily cookie cutter comps that make it super easy and clear. So understanding pricing, understanding how to have the conversations with sellers around pricing, depending on the market you're in, and understanding an ongoing conversation around price, the market, necessary reductions, negotiations, things like that. So it's just all the skills you need in the regular price points, just they're honed for the nuanced differences in higher priced properties.
In other words, you really need to know what you're doing and how you're doing, and it needs to be on a little bit of a higher level than what you do for, let's say, a lower priced home, which is in a market where today, let's just say in today's market over the last few years, that's going to sell without a lot of marketing. You know,
Correct.
I know up here that in our area, I mentioned Franklin Lake, Saddle River, Alpine earlier. I mean, we know that, you know, the price point of, you know, 1 to 2 million, somewhere in there, that's going to sell pretty little easier than that 2 plus, 3 plus, and it's going to
100%.
take time, and those conversations had to happen. As the listing agent, as you just said, you are most of the time, what are your expectations of that agent making the offer on your luxury listing?
From the buyer?
Yes.
Yeah. Um, I can very quickly pick up on if this is a newer to luxury buyer's agent or if it's a skilled, seasoned buyer's agent. There's just normally a lot more nuance between the buyers, the sellers, the creativity of packaging the deal together. Can they understand the conversations that need to be had? So certainly I'm expecting a clean offer. I'm expecting understanding their proof of funds, you know, at least 50% of the time or more. These are not finance transactions. They are,
Right.
you know, cash transactions. So we need kind of proof of that. And that they're just skilled. I think going back to what you were saying about going kind of up in skill set, I think the natural progression for an agent who wants to get into higher price points but doesn't quite know how, I would start working with more and more buyers in those, you know, starter luxury price points. Start working up with your buyers in those price
Right.
points. Start picking
Mhm.
up listings in the starter price point, and then just inching yourself up. And not everybody always wants to go after those uber price points either. You know, that's not a thing for everybody. It sounds like it's a great fit for your friend there, in New Jersey, who loves to wear the suits and all those kind of things. But even in that top 5 to 10%, there's so much less competition from other agents, but so much opportunity in that side of the business where you can double your income, um, pretty comfortably.
Is it less, you just said less competition in that higher echelon, you know? Is
Mhm.
it that is it that flamboyant agent, that listing agent that's got his picture everywhere that tells everybody that he just sold that $3 million property? Is that the important part to the luxury listings, to luxury sellers? Or is it just, well, they're going to get themselves in the door because everybody knows these guys' names or whoever they are. I see that all over my area, and honestly, they think very highly of themselves, and you know, right? They probably should. Is that the way to get in the door, or is the way to get in the door is it's just like everything else with persistence and knowledge?
So when I moved to a new market 10 years ago, I moved from Miami to St. Augustine, Florida, where my family's actually from. And when I moved, I didn't know anybody. Like, didn't have a past client, didn't have any relationships with anybody. And I entered luxury in my market, as a brand new agent in this area through luxury expires. You know, so you can do luxury expires, you can do social media targeted to that, you can do direct mail. It doesn't have to be that flashy marketing based approach. It can be, again, it comes down to your personality and what are you going to be really good at and what are you going to be consistent with. But you can do it a marketing approach or a tactical, you know, outreach focused approach. It just depends on people's
Right.
skill set. But what is important, and going back to your gentleman when you were saying he was, um, maybe going into areas that he didn't quite have the bank to support. What's
Right.
important more than anything, and even when, especially when you're on the listing presentation, is authenticity. People can read somebody who's inauthentic, meaning putting on a persona that they can't they don't really have the backing to support, whether that's as a top listing agent or a top agent or a flashy agent. They want authenticity and they want knowledge and skill set. That is more important to them than anything else. A lot of times as you go up in price point, it's not from the flashy stuff. It's from
Right.
referrals from their friends because they really look to trusted advisors of their other peer groups and friends and things like that. Much even more than at the regular price point. It's like getting into that inner circle kind of from the back door in.
This is all great stuff. And I asked you some questions that I've never heard answers to as far as all that. And I want to get into the training. I mean, that's one of the things that's really your passion these days is the luxury training. And like the scrolling message says, co-chair EXP Realty's luxury division. Tell me how that came about and talk to me about the training. Tell me about the whole situation there and what's going on there.
Yeah, so I've been coaching and training agents from even probably my first 2 or 3 years in business. I just had a heart for it. I just loved
Right.
it. Of course, I wasn't training on luxury before I was a skilled luxury agent. I think I was training on tech and social media at the time. But I fell into that. I became a big trainer, did a lot of training for my Sotheby's brokerage. I did a lot of training when I was at Compass. From my times at Sotheby's, I really built out my own training and coaching for agents who are wanting to either raise their average price point, meaning get more into luxury, or if they were already in luxury, develop a systematized ongoing source of listings,
Right.
rather than, most agents are kind of like just taking what comes at them, which is not a great business plan. And then with the luxury division at EXP, when I first joined EXP 4 years ago, we just had this horrible branding. We had this ugly blue and orange puzzle piece thing. Nothing looked really sharp and polished. And so a couple of us went to corporate and said, hey, we have a lot of people doing a lot of luxury at this brokerage, but there's no division, there's no tools, there's no unifying us. And corporate heard our plea and understood. And we were blessed enough to have quite a few corporate people in marketing and branding and events from Compass and from Sotheby's corporate. So the 5 of us plus these corporate people all came together, created this beautiful, beautiful brand within a brand at EXP Luxury. And then at the same time, we went through some changes at a corporate level and completely rebrand and repositioned everything, not just the luxury division, but the entire company has had like this big glow up, so to speak, over the last 4 years.
Yeah, I think it's been a really fun journey to watch luxury. Now, I'm not involved in the luxury division with EXP, but it's been a joy to watch the growth of what's been happening within the organization. So, someone wants to join this company and they want to get into luxury. What's their first step?
So, if they want to join the company,
even getting into luxury, what would be their first step, even if they came into EXP?
So, if they came into EXP, or if just in general?
Both. General,
Okay.
general, and then how the luxury division works in EXP. Excuse me, I confused it. I apologize.
So if you wanted to get into luxury, regardless of where you are, you need to get training, right? You need to get training. That could be from your existing brokerage. That could be from whatever you can find on the internet. That could be from my training, Luxury Accelerator, or it could be from the Luxury Institute of Luxury Home Marketing. You need training. You need to be at a brokerage, ideally, that supports luxury. Either they themselves are a luxury brokerage, they have a luxury division, or they have tools, because it does become expensive to market your listings. And when you're with a brokerage, again, like EXP Luxury or traditional legacy luxury brands, through their buying power, they are able to get a lot of those marketing tools at a fraction of the cost than if you're by yourself trying to pull all that marketing together. That's the start. If you're at EXP already, or you're interested in joining EXP, we have a division, and there's 2 ways that you can join the division. You are either qualified based on your sales, that you have the requisite sales to just join the division, and then you apply to division. There's an annual cost and you're in. Or you can take a fast track certification, which is a training course to give you kind of the backbone, the foundation, and then you can join it. And we also now have a sister division, the land and ranch division, and that's for folks who sell any kind of land, ranch, equestrian, farmland, wineries, things like that. They are 2 separate divisions, but they work hand in hand, because a lot of times those farm and ranch properties are luxury properties as well. So lots of options that we have now here at EXP to really make you be able to be a superstar agent for a crazy low price.
Yeah, I love that. Now we promoted this broadcast the other day talking about opportunity, talking about the real estate market alone from luxury it has a lot of opportunity. Talk to me about your thoughts about the opportunity in the real estate business and the markets as they exist today. What do you mean when you say opportunity?
We have so much opportunity, like everybody, not everybody, but there's a lot of people who are scared, they're nervous, they're anxious because I don't know the exact stat, but it's like 75-80% of agents who are active agents right now have only been licensed less than 17 years, meaning they did not come from a pre-2007 market as an active agent and go through 2007, 2008, which was our Great Recession. So they've only been in an up market and they're really stressed. And I understand that because you're so used to things being one way, you don't know how to adapt. Right now, we are experiencing across the country what I call the great stall. Everything is really stalled out. I think we have the lowest number of transactions last year than we've
Yep.
had in, I don't know, 30 years, something crazy. We're stalled out, but we will not always be stalled out. So there's, in my opinion, a huge opportunity to gain market share, market recognition that will not continue to exist. And that's by getting your name out there, branding yourself, doing the things, knowing that maybe you're going to continue to work on, let's call it the lowest hanging fruit, whatever is selling right now, but you're developing a certain portion of your time, your business, your resources is developing market share, visibility in wherever it is that you want to go. So you're laying that, sowing that seed, sowing that seed, sowing that seed. So when things start to open up, people are thinking immediately of you. The other one is expires. And I like I said at the beginning, that's how I went from brand new in a market to number 9 in my MLS within 2 years as a solo agent, was going after luxury expireds. The difference now is that a lot of expireds, a lot of people are taking their properties off the market. They're actually delisting, which we haven't seen a crazy amount of that ever before, and they're waiting. So now you have a list of people who have exhibited an interest to sell. Maybe they've decided to wait for a little bit longer. You can get in front of them every 2 weeks, direct mail marketing, every 2 weeks, direct mail marketing, maybe do some letters, maybe do some other stuff. Nurture them, nurture them, nurture them, because now this is a group that's already raised their hand and expressed interest in selling. So imagine if in 6 or 9 months they decide to come back on the market. There's a very good chance that the original agent just has checked out, they've moved on and done other things. They're going to be thinking of you. So we have so much opportunity right now. And then some are still going to relist right away, or within,
Right.
2 to 3 months. So it expireds and visibility building, I think, are our two biggest opportunities right now. And they're huge.
So I want to hit upon a question I asked in a group yesterday that I was working with, was all about lead gen yesterday. We had about 40, 50 people on it in our team talking about lead gen, and we actually do database. We do call it a database rally every week, where everybody goes into their database and we're all on Zoom together, all in person together, wherever we are, and we go through our database. And it's been really great for us, right? It's been building our business and growing our team. But the question I asked is, there's a lot of agents that have come from let's just use other brokerages, other franchises that have come in, and they're used to this thing that we used to call, I think it was an oven, they said set it and forget it type of marketing, where we go into every CRM from the very beginning, from that program known as Top Producer years ago, which was probably my first CRM 30
I
years
still
ago.
use Top Producer for my expireds.
Wow, it's
I'll
still
tell you
around.
why separately, but there's one function that their old Top Producer has that no other CRM has that I can find. But
Well, I thought Top Producer was wonderful. It was easy to set up all different kinds of campaigns, but
yeah,
it too had this set it and forget it thing where you say, okay, that's a
rip it.
buyer that's going to be ready in 6 months, and that's a seller that's going to be ready in a year. So let
Yeah,
me just put this on and I forget it. Is
yeah.
that the kind of marketing we need to do today? Is it something that works on its own, or do we need to do something else?
So that's a great question. And what I am seeing is, with the advent of AI and automations and everything that we've seen from the original drip kind of system, it's very easy for us as the consumer. And if you have to think about buyers and sellers, they're generally consumers of real estate services, right? It's very easy for us to have our spidey senses when something is just generic, right? Even with AI. And we are losing touch with the human element. And real estate, so that we can continue to create those bonds, you definitely do need the human element. Now, there's certain things you can do to streamline that human element, but I still think picking up the call or leaving a voicemail or leaving a voice note for somebody where it's just going from just canned, which is okay. There's a place for it, but it shouldn't be your only thing, because your conversion rate is going to be a lot lower than somebody who starts to add that human element in. The additional thing, and it's a little separate from your question, but I think still relevant, is like I
Sure.
said, I think everybody should have some kind of a niche, at least one. It doesn't mean you're not going to do all the other business, but it is the easiest and fastest way to let you become a category of one. You need to redo all of that content in a niche version. So for me, the equestrian version or the historic version, because then I'm really speaking their language. I'm really honing in on what's important to them. They might have had an agent they ran into before that couldn't talk about horse farms or talk about water depths or tides or things like that. So the more you can have a niched version, duplicate version, but written just for them, the important. But you definitely need to interweave the human element, calling, texting, voicemails, things like that.
Yeah, I really love the niche version point of view, because that's really important. Because I was talking to another agent the other day who was with another company, just joined us, and I said, well, how are you following up with the people that that are going to be ready in 6 to 12 months? Well, I have them on a drip campaign. Okay, does anybody know what the word drip means? What the drip campaign means, the really idea of it is, if you have a faucet in your house and it's dripping, eventually, because it annoys the crap out of you, you're going to fix it. That's where the drip campaign idea comes from, right? But understand that if you can't hear the drip, it's not dripping. What I mean by that is, if you're sending out the same crap that's been going out for 20 years, you're going to get lost and they're going to ignore you and you're going to be called spam. When you talk about niching it down and changing, maybe just a couple of words, it really hits home. And that is the way to really do it. And of course, the personal touch. I don't believe, Janie, that there's ever going to be a time where we're not going to be needed in person, et cetera. Look, AI's taken over our lead gen. AI's taken over all this stuff if we let it. And you know what, if it does it better than us, why not, right? But the thing about the personal touch is really important. And the reason I asked that question was, you talked about, every 2 weeks, some type of mail, some type of direct mail. When we talk about direct mail, are we talking about postcards? Are we talking about letters? What are we talking about? Or is it all of it?
When I do my expire program, which is mailing based and potentially calling enhanced, but calling's not necessary, I always start off with what's like a big fat package first day. And then I alternate postcards and letters, because I found some people are driven by the visual that you get on a postcard, and some people are driven by data that you can have in a letter. So by having a package and then alternating letters and postcards, you're kind of hitting the different personality types of how people like to take in content.
Now, you talked about having at least one niche, and I look at it this way. I think I like to call them pillars of business, right? And I
Mhm.
know, personally, the way I train and coach is, I look at your sphere of influence as being that number one piece of it, because I really believe that a lot of people, should be talking to everybody that they know one way or the other. And I'm not talking about asking your family or friends to buy or sell a house. I'm talking about building relationships. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people are getting better at, and a lot of people are not talking about when we talk about relationship building. You're being in luxury and teaching luxury, being that luxury trainer. Relationships are just as, if not more important than anything, right? Depending on what you're doing and to bring in your knowledge. Talk to me about relationship building and how you've been able to do that through your business and through your training.
Yeah, so that's probably one of the coolest aspects of raising your average price point and getting into luxury is, like I said, your friend in New Jersey approached it from being that person out there in the luxury social circles to get business. And then I went the other way. I got the business first. And then most of now my personal friends are from the business because I've developed great personal friendships with
Right.
many of them. And the great thing with that is the spin-off of business and opportunities from that, just like I'm doing a transaction right now, that this is the fourth couples set from the original couple set that just kept referring. Each one of them have had like at least 2 transactions with me, all from the first, because they just want to know, who did you use? Who do you trust? So they're not looking at the billboards, right? They're wanting to know,
Right.
who do you trust? So I follow up with the people that I want to stay in touch with. I don't want to stay in touch with all of them,
I
but
get that.
more on a friendly way, more in a much more friendly way than just positioning myself as an ongoing real estate agent, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes complete sense. I mean, you're talking about the people you want to stay in touch with, the people
Right.
that's fun to work with. I had associate of mine yesterday, Chris Tarter. We were talking about, he was going out to an appointment, and he says, Dave, in the last 10 years, this gentleman has bought 3 houses from me, all on the first showing. We never looked at anything more than one. And I said, so in other words, you're going to show a house, you're going to sell a house. Are you bringing a contract with you? Because he's going to buy what you show him. And that's a relationship, right? That's the trust. That's the relationship. That's the trust that he has built with everyone else. And that is not something that's secret to all of us. We all know how to be real with people, and to build a friendship and build a relationship. Really important. Janie, you've been in this business for a while, right? And you basically have been, luxury one way or the other as time went on, and you still keep going. You started in development and contracting and stuff like that. When do you think this is not when? How do you not burn out? How do you keep going? How do you remain passionate at everything? Because people do lose passion. They get to a certain level, and then they don't keep going, or they just stay there and they're complacent and stuff. You've got the energy, you've got the passion that everyone can see here, as well as I see. How do you keep it going, Janie?
Actually, I did burn out, and I burnt out. mm, it was probably 3 years ago. I can actually track it back to a very specific kind of instance. Um, and it was very hard to come back from that. Um, but the interesting thing was, until it happened to me, I had been going, for all those years. I never really truly thought burnout was a true thing. Like it seemed like a word, a phrase, but I didn't fully understand it was a true thing. And when I hit that, it was hard to come out of. And I think one of the most important things is to truly understand it
Right.
is a thing, and to be attuned to that. And so now I have pretty strong parameters around who I'll work with. I no longer work with anybody, meaning they have to be realistic, motivated, and nice. And if they're not, we're not going to work together. I only do the things I love now. And instead of feeling like I have to do everything, I either refer out business or I don't take certain kinds of business. I've pulled in the things that I really enjoy doing. So it's a pleasure and a joy. Like I only work with buyers if they're personal friends at this point, because it's just not my thing. But
Right.
with them, it's like going on vacation. So I think being conscious of burnout will catch up with just about anybody. And building parameters around, or guardrails around in advance. So now I really don't work on Sundays. I consider that my reset day. I need a lot of time to think, a lot of time to process and enjoy things. So that's, I think the key is to understand it is a true risk that any of us going hard face, and to build guardrails in advance. And maybe you'll never face it. But I did not have guardrails in place before. And I think that was the big downfall.
No, I really, I mean, it's what I try to do in these broadcasts is bring out information and things that I always want to know about myself, and what can help me and what can help the people that I'm working with. Truth be told, I mean, I don't know if I would call it burnout with me, but it's taken me a very long time over the past, I'm going to say 5 to 8 years, to build a better passion for the actual business of it. I mean, this here is something that I've done every week for over 7 years, and I enjoy doing it. It's a lot of fun. I always look forward to it. So that keeps me going every week. However, the business of real estate itself has been kind of like in background for me. Haven't really wanted to do it. Couldn't get up to do it. And finally, over the last, I'm going to say year, I finally realized what I love to do in this business. And I didn't allow myself to do it for the last 5 to 8 years. And now I've decided that I'm going to do it. And what I've learned is that I need to learn a lot of new things, right?
Yeah.
So the learning part of it has gotten me excited. Talking to the right people about it has got me excited. And now the implementation process, it's like I'm brand new in this business. So the passion is coming back to me. And I've been around a couple of years, as most people know and can tell. So the whole idea of getting back into it, you know, people say, well, Dave, you're retired. No, I'm not retired. I never was retired, never will be retired. Yes. Will I take it slow? Yeah. I have a goal now. I have a plan now. And I think that's important to if you have burnout, why, to figure out why.
Right.
We always talk about the why. We always talk about that stuff. Simon Sinek, start with why. You know, it really is important, but I couldn't figure out my why for a long time.
Oh.
And now a why will not necessarily be the most important thing. If the why is, are you going to have fun doing what you freaking do?
And that's the thing. That's one reason why I suggest having sorry, my dog wants to, she wants to be in on
fine.
this. This is Hope.
Hello.
This is Hope. She's the Velcro dog. That's why if you develop a niche around your passion, it's just fun. Like me, I love historic homes. I love equestrian properties. I love farms. So it's like vacation to deal with that. Do I love cookie cutter townhouses? Absolutely not. Do I love, thrown up together subdivisions? No way. So if you develop a niche around something you're really interested, something you're really passionate about, you are that much further away from, even having burnout, because it's fun. The people you're going to work with are more likely to be potential friends because they have the same passions. That might be skiing, that might be golf, that might be boating and fishing, or, recreation, whatever it is. Then it's exciting and fun and you don't burn out. So I think that's really, and one more thing, I'm sorry, I know I talk too much. Develop a really big funnel, meaning a lot of people in the top of your funnel, so that you can be vetting and choosing who you want to work with because they're motivated, realistic, and nice, versus not putting much effort on your funnel and out of desperation, feeling of lack or scarcity, you end up working with anybody. That's what burns you out. Working with jerks or unrealistic or unmotivated people. That's what burns you out. So
absolutely. Absolutely. And having the passion of doing this is really the important part. And as I said, and as you just said, I mean, know who you want to work with, know what that looks like. And I'm going to tell most people that the person and people you want to work with basically is staring you back in the mirror.
Right.
Those are the people you want to work with. Someone that's more like you, either whatever it is. I mean, for me, I like to have fun. I like to play golf, right? So, so I have a new bunch of people I hang out with now. Because those are the people that love to play golf. I love to play golf. I mean, but anyway, we've been going on and on about passion and about different things. This has been a great broadcast. I want to thank you so much for coming on today. And we've got your Instagram coming up here, and I've just got one question for you, and then a comment. How can I help you grow your business?
That's a great comment, or a great question. So I see Luxury Accelerators scrolling at the bottom. We do 4 annual 90-day sprints to help people either get up and going in luxury and or streamline and systematize the luxury business they already have. Our next sprint is starting October 1st. And so if anybody watches this before October 1st, 2025, you can go to luxuryaccelerator.com and learn more about that.
That's really cool. That's really excellent.
It's good timing.
Yeah, absolutely. Great timing. And you know what? Again, I want to thank you so much for coming on. And of course, everyone that comes on a broadcast gets a hat. So we've got this hat coming out to you. I know I hopefully will see you in a few weeks in Miami.
Yep, I will be in Miami.
and that'll be a lot of fun. Next week, we have Nick Krem coming on, the Krem Institute of Artificial Intelligence. Nick Krem's been around for a very long time, and a young guy. Has worked with Jay Kinder and Michael Reese and that whole organization, the Honey Badgers. And Nick's a good guy. He's going to be on next week. He's going to talk about AI. And we've had Kerry Sauvé on. We've had Riley Vanderkamp from I can't remember the name of his company, but I'll stop right there. Anyway, but we're going to have a lot of fun next week with Nick. Janie,
Awesome.
thank you so much for coming on. Stay on as we go off. Everybody, thank you so much. This is Friday, September 19th, 2025. Thanks for being on. We'll see you next week with Nick. Hey!